been following this, but at the school we've still been doing it. You could probably, I don't think we filmed it yesterday though. But anyways, so we're going to go through a few of the fundamentals. Some of those fundamentals are really the geometry of our positions. So the body as an extension, or the apparatus extension of the body, really helps us define that. So when we're in this position, the leg work, the shifting, horizontal, slice across, in between, forward position, neutral position, vertical sword pushing from underneath, horizontal over the top to undercut. Pulling in, sink the elbow, turn the sword, sink the elbow, open the sword, open the body, close, flip, turn, and stab. Poking out like that, go to the back corner, press down, uppercut, flip the sword, switch the feet, and poke. Slice to the waist, over the head, come to the front position, poke down, set up your position, pass through center, step out, drop the sword. Okay, so if you look in the mirror, I'm in that corner. So the sword is here. It's not there, it's right here. So when I poked and I step, I lean up and down. And then from here, comes back to center, switch the sword, bring it to the lower leg, elbows fairly straight, and we're in this position. Palm is like this. And if we were to poke, it would be like this. Turn, we set up over the head, drop it down, turn away, sweep across, cut up, turn, open, turn. Push. So the important thing is release and relax the joints. If you don't release and relax the joints, then you end up having conflict in movement, and you might feel some discomfort in the shoulder or certain areas of the body that's a little bit tense. But then, when you, even though this is only 1.5 pounds or 1.25 pounds, when you extend it out there are moments, there's forces acting on this joint. And if this joint is tense, then you're going to feel it there. And your back actually has to sustain this load, has to support that load that's going forward. So you have to have your leg in position to support the forward momentum of the weight. You have your back controlling it so it can go down. You have this side balancing the opposite side. So your body does go through a bit of a physical workout in a sense, but we try to control that, mitigate some of the excess forces in the body, that the brain actually starts to figure some of that out. But a lot of it is really letting go of that tension and controlling the movement slowly, but yet if the body's in position, it's fairly natural. It doesn't really conflict with the direction of the movement because the body is set up to do that. But if you're in a conflicted position where you're elbow's not in the right position, or your shoulder's a little bit tense, or you're moving in the wrong plane of movement, that's where you usually will have some problems. So, vertical, horizontal, slanting, based on your body position. So when you go over the top, keep it as close to the center line as possible. When you come up, keep it tracking. I mean, you can't really, go through the body. You have to adjust the body. So I'm here and I want to keep it close. I have to pass through my center. It can't really stay, 100% as a straight line. It approaches the center position by moving a little bit in a small angle to the side. So, you're going to get a triangle that's narrow, and it's going to come up like so. When I'm on this side, that's like this. When I'm over here, from this point to that point is the line. From this point, even though I come across, it's still not over there, it's over there, and then it comes down, and the more I turn, the more I can track toward that. So that really requires a spine rotation to get you into that direction. None of that could happen unless your torso is rotating. So that's why we do a lot of twisting and turning, in our warm-ups. We learn to twist the spine, we learn to figure out what those joint angle positions are. So you have the 45 on the two sides, the center line there. You have the 45 on the two back sides, especially if you're doing the 24. You can see the back corners. And then all those angles merge and they come into what we try to find as a center line. So the center line goes through the body if you're going back and forth. So you're gonna have to track that a bit the best you can and integrate it with the rotation of the back, the spine. So let's go through the sequence now. We start off with our feet parallel, open the stance, preparation. Forward, turn. Grasp the sparrow's tail motions. Turn. Turn, sink, sit down, come forward, relax, get over this supporting foot, and we're here. Turn around, the sword, flip the sword over to get to one side, then you get to this side. Down the middle, step out, sink down, lift up, push forward, over the top, drop it down, cut up, sit back, turn, lift, open, stab. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Poke down, shift forward, pass through center, step out to that corner, chop down, shift the weight, come to the center, here. Drop, switch to feet, and poke. Sit back, set it up, turn. Over the head, sit back, bring this hand to here and lift the knee. heel kick. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Up, down, out. Oops, should be there. 1, 2, shift, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Okay, so we see that when we flip it over to here, then we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's do that one more time. So from here, we turn 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you see that? So when we're turning, we lift. We slice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. This should be here. Okay. Here and poke. 1, 2, 3. See? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, from here we're going to come back to neutral and then do this. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you come up. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're coming up with the kick. Fold the knee. Chop. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Okay. 3. 3. 4. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So if you've been doing this form for a while, you memorize the sequence and you can get through the sequence. But what I tried to do going through the form like that was to show you sort of the interim positions or the timing phases within a transition when the hand is like this, where the leg is, where the blade is, how do you transition from vertical to horizontal, what's your setup, how do you prepare for the next motion, because the setup is important if you're trying to build timing and movement. So the phases and movement are something that the body starts to pick up as an integration, as a coordination, as an approach to a systematized motion. It's your movement should be organized. Movement should be structured by the geometry of positions and time, so that your body has this integration of phases within the realm of the space, because it's really multi-dimensional. And that multi-dimensional change really is what we kind of lose track of we lose perspective of where we're going sometimes. So where the foot is, when do you turn, and what happens above, what happens below, what happens when we turn. Then you have to adjust the accuracy of your positions. The accuracy of your positions. You know, all of these things are really muscle memory. So you can imagine what's going on in here trying to figure all that out. So first line, sequence. Second line, identity. You got to identify the names of the postures. Well, we don't use the names in the sword form, but we use names of specific ideas. You know, even though the form does have names, but the names are really feel pretty complicated. I don't even remember many of them, but the basic ones. But the thing is, I like to use the direction of a cut, a horizontal position, a poke, a neutral position. These kind of positions that are consistent, because when it comes to names, you could memorize, you know, 200 names, but not really know where they are. There might be some, just like grasp the sparrow's tail. You could recognize that when it happens 8 times, they're all the same. So when we slice up and we make a circle, vertical circle, we can kind of identify the direction of those movements a little bit easier, because it is a direction. So whether you're going right to left, if it's slanted down on the oblique, it just gives you an idea that the blade is doing that. It's cutting and it's going through it. Yeah. So that was more of a breakdown in timing and motion and how we shift and adjust our legs. So if we go through it again, more without any dialogue, just go through the motions and try to follow along, and then we just see where it goes. Oops, sorry. I'd added an extra movement there. So here we turn again, and we just step through. Actually, I did a different move there, but that's another way of doing that flip over. So that was fairly quick, but it just shows you that once your coordination is built, then you can blend the movements and run through the sequence. So how long should that form typically take to do at maybe an average speed? About 5 minutes. The form takes about 5 minutes. So you could use that as a guideline as to how fast or how slow you should do it. But the agility of the movement really comes from running through the movement and building it. So, forms are designed to house the sequence, to build a mapping of techniques and, house all these different strategies of how you would use this apparatus or how you would use the techniques that you learn even in the empty hand form, where you're using just, the body mechanics and, the different techniques that we have, with the free hand. And once you've developed your sequence and you know it cold and you can run through it, you can change the tempo of it, you can speed it up, you can slow it down, you can try to go through it as fast as you can to see if you get boggled down, or do you lose your place, or is it in your system? Because the faster you can do something, the more embodied it is and the more reflex action it is. Because ultimately, when you're doing any of these mechanical training type things or motion training, ultimately it becomes a reflex. So how you apply or adapt that reflex and the speed in which you do it really depends on your intent or your goal, your purpose of doing the movement. So if you're using it to, as in combat, then it has to be fairly fast. If you're using it for performance, it has to be very defined. It has to be very aesthetically pleasing. So aesthetically pleasing comes from the integration of the body, the timing, the lines, the direction, how the phases of movement are appealing to the eye. But it's not, when it comes to that, it's really as a performance skill, and it's for the audience's pleasure. Really, it doesn't. It's really a show person's type of ability to capture that audience's eye. So that's why performance is a skill, just like applications is a skill. Every direction you head in becomes a different type of skill. So, and even as a teacher, it's a skill, because you have to get across to the audience, get across to the student, what the mission is. How do you get this to happen? Based on how the student is understanding, because sometimes we're not on the same wavelength. So we have to kind of tune into each other. Now, because I can't see who's doing this outside, it's very difficult for me to know what the progression is, and I don't even know if anyone's learning it. I could be just talking to a camera and nobody's watching. So on that note, I'm really talking to myself. But at the same time, as someone that's doing this, I assume that there are people watching and that the content and information I'm giving out is valuable enough, or at least clear enough for you to pick up on it. So, when we're doing these forms, we have to understand that it is a training, and the whole purpose of training is to develop, as humans, to use repetitive movement, develop in action, it becomes habits. I guess even the way you think can be habitual too. So, the mind is a very powerful thing. It takes in whatever it needs to take in. It could take in more than it really needs to take in. And then if you have too much information in there, that could be a problem, because then people get stressed or confused and so forth. But, all in all, information for here that translates into body movements, body mechanics, is a science in itself, because we have to learn to understand that. So, my interest is really more of, how the human body works and how we're able to do this, because it's pretty amazing to me that I'm able to recall and remember so many of these things. Obviously, if I stop doing it, it does get dulled as well. Anything that you stop doing, the memory sets it aside. And when it sets it aside, it's up to you to draw it out. But here's the advantage of a long-term practitioner. When you need to draw it out, it comes out in a short amount of time, simply because it's in there and you just have to refresh it. So that's what we do. We refresh it. I mean, it's just like the way a computer works today. I guess this would be your motherboard, and you have to feed it with information, and then all the hardware that we use, whatever it is the part of the body and apparatus. So we learn how to maneuver our body and tie it together. So that's what's fascinating as a martial art. The training experience is, I'd say second to none, because it really teaches you so much about your capacity, because a lot of times we don't even know that we can do a lot of these things, simply because of no experience. Everything that we're doing on this journey is really getting experience. So where does that come into play in life? Experience actually makes you smarter. It makes you more insightful about things. And that's why as we get older and we experience things, we are actually smarter. But tell that to a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old when they're going through that process, thinking that they all know the new stuff. But anyways, hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you next time, and subscribe and let us know how you're doing with this.